Hey, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours, where we've been answering your media and tech-related production questions every single day since March 25th of 2020. Jason Bache in Albuquerque, New Mexico is our reader today. So, Jason, what have we got on top of the list?
Top of the list is Harold Williams from Portsmouth, and he asks, AWS MediaLive offers a Dolby format for audio. How could I take advantage of it in preparation for my live stream if I only have two channels, left and right?
And we're going to Mickey first off this morning. Mickey, good morning.
So within AWS, you can create that separate. You're talking about MediaLive. You can create a separate either EAC3, enhanced AC3 encode, or AC4 encode there. And if you are only transmitting two channels, there's no real point with it. But you can send channel 1 left to your encode channel 1 and channel 2 right to your encode channel 2. Your playback, either web player or application or receiver or whatever it may be that's decoding this, will see if it's Dolby Digital 5.1, it will see the 5.1 stream, but of course only play back the channels that you're sending. And if it's an Atmos stream, it will see Atmos. But you can route those two channels to those destinations. But of course you'll only actually hear stereo.
Jeff Francis.
I knew Mickey was going to jump in on this, which is why I waited to be second in line. I'm going to ask Mickey a question. What he thinks about, and it's a two-part question, because people receiving that only left and right signal in the multi-channel stream, there are a small percentage of users who will claim something's wrong because I'm set to 5.1 mode or I'm set to Atmos mode, and there's only sound actually moving the meters in the left and the right channels. That's one question. Have you experienced that with feedback from users? And the second question is, talk about upmixing and your opinions of that.
In a professional broadcast environment, you should not have that wherein stereo feed is being encoded in a larger container, whether it be channel-based or object-based. There is absolutely no point you're wasting resources when you're doing that. So in, again, proper professional broadcast environment, you would not do that. You might do it for testing, as I think the person asking Harold might be pertaining to, because he mentioned in preparation. But yeah, you should not see that if you do see something being decoded from 5.1 or Atmos or some other larger format, but the content is only stereo, someone's doing something wrong. In terms of upmixing, there are situations wherein it is the only choice, wherein you find yourself, for example, me as a post-production re-recording mixer, sometimes I don't get all the stems for the music, for the score. And I have to upmix from, a stereo mix, or perhaps I get a 5.1 score mix. I don't get the individual stems, but then the deliverable is Atmos. So I may have to use something like, Halo upmix from Nugent Audio to open it up a little, throw some air into the height channels, maybe get some surround verbs, 3D verbs, so that I get some nice sparkles from the height channels. But that for me is a last resort, because I want to start from the individual stems and send the actual instruments I want to where I want them to be in the space.
For those of us not professionals, Mickey, is upmixing always just taking a fewer number of channels and mapping them onto more channels for a simulated multi-channel kind of or environmental effect? Yeah,
so it's not only just a simple panning. When you say upmixing, you are doing some processing in terms of phase, delays, frequencies, splitting up frequencies so that they envelop a room a bit more. You're not just like say, oh, I'll get these two channels and put them like sort of in the center of the space. You're manipulating it so that you have phase differences, you have delays, and it's just feels and sounds bigger than it actually is in just a stereo field.
Okay. And I would imagine with so much emphasis now on multi-channel sound and things like AirPods and things like that, allowing consumers to hear or at least imagine hearing in spatial, that this is becoming more and more important for mixers to be able to at least understand these techniques. Jeff Francis, you want to get back in on something?
I wanted to talk real quick about data and bit rate. When I'm not sure how the AWS MediaLive changes the bit rate when you go from stereo to multi-channel. But if you're using a similar or the same bit rate for multiple channels, now you're reducing the bit rate for each individual channel. Now, if you're just using the left and right of a 5.1 or an Atmos, the encoder should be smart enough that it doesn't require much data to put silence into the other channels. But this is something to think about. I've noticed this on Atmos music mixes. If you go in and you solo up the height channels, they're horrible quality because of the data rate that is going on here. Now, when all the channels are playing, psychoacoustics come into play, masking, and the human cannot perceive that, hopefully, if the data rate's high enough. But if you solo them out, you will hear that it's, we're talking about a lot of channels of audio compressed down to a low bit rate. And when you have more channels in the same bit rate, you have to do more compression. So that's something to keep in mind. Harold, if you're doing this to prepare for future, it's a great experiment. If your audio is just stereo, just send stereo.
Mickey?
Yeah, just to add to what Jeff just mentioned, that's part of the technology that Dolby has and how they're able to say within a tiny how large is a UHD stream from Apple or Netflix, like 30-40 megabits per second. That compression technology is part of what makes Atmos really efficient, especially in an EAC3 stream. That spatial coding is what takes those, the term that they use is spatial coding, and it's what takes those 128 channels of audio, a mixture of beds and objects, and squishes them down to essentially 12, I believe it's 12 to 18 channels for the spatial coding, Jeff, somewhere there. So you're only actually streaming down somewhere like 14 or 16 channels down as opposed to the full 128. And that's why it's able to very smartly allocate or group multiple objects together and beds together into a very, very small number of channels. But that's why, like, if you just solo those actual speakers, turn off your other monitors in the room, they don't sound great because they're being optimized to sound good as a whole, not just individual channels.
When you were saying that, it really reminds me of the fact that if I have a video scene and I've got principals in front of the camera, then I've got a background with some trees or something like that, the compression can be pretty vicious on those trees if everybody is focused successfully on the people talking in front of the trees. So allocating a lot of bits to making the trees perfect doesn't really gain you that much. This sounds like the audio equivalent to the same thing. You're putting the resolution where it most matters, and for some of those extra channels, it doesn't quite matter as much. I find that really interesting. I guess we're all dealing with bit budgets. Let's get to our next question.
Our own Jeff Francis in Columbia, South Carolina asks, if and when you purchase used gear, how do you test its functionality when it arrives?
Jeff Francis is going to start us off. Jeff?
So I just received a pair of microphones in, and something that I'll do is check those for noise that is where they should be. Since they're a match pair, I will probably put them up through a preamp, match the levels on the preamps, put them as close as possible together, put them in front of a sound source, and listen to those A versus B, and also do polarity invert on one. So I'm basically subtracting the two to see how different they are. This is a great way to test to see if a mic is out of spec. But I'm kind of curious to see what else people do and go beyond just, I know it's audio day, but go beyond audio and how we test gear if we've purchased something that, stuff can come from the manufacturer and have a problem right off the assembly line, but then you have a warranty and you'll discover it in production. And so usually with used gear, you have a certain amount of time to say, this is not as it was advertised, so let me check it out and return it if need be.
I'm also interested, Jeff, you have really, really good ears. I've heard that over the course of time. How much I understand the objective reason to put it on a scope and to do these phase issues and things like that to see, honestly, is there differences and where they are? But at the end of it, does it really come down to all that gets kind of pushed aside and you're just going to listen and decide whether or not what you are looking for exists in these microphones?
I know these microphones, not this particular, I know this model and this this line. And so I know what I should have there. But at a point where I'm going to get them in front of an orchestra, if that's a session or a concert, I may not have time to swap them. So I need to make sure that they are what I think they are before I get there. So that's just confirming that these are functioning microphones of the brand model they are.
And of the quality level that you're expecting by paying the money for that kind of microphone as opposed to something lesser. All right, thank you. Marty.
Right. So if I'm for used gear, if we're talking about an electronic piece or a microphone, I would plug it in and power it up for a minimum of 24 hours, possibly several days, and have it running and warmed up, and then take a listen for noise, and then all of the operations of the piece, run it through its paces, all of its functions, to make sure that everything is working, not just when you turn it on for the first time or just power it up, but after it's been warmed up and running for a while. Microphones are an interesting thing because you don't have a defined input like you would with a processor. You're dealing with acoustics, and like Jeff is saying, every microphone has its own voicing, its frequency response, and its tonal characters. And you want to be sure that the piece you're getting is accurate according to its design, right? So where Jeff is concerned about putting it up in front of an orchestra where a microphone could be 20 feet up in the air, even if you were putting it in front of an acoustic guitar, you're selecting that microphone based on the tonal character of the instrument. And you want to be sure that the character of the microphone is going to be well matched to the instrument. Like you would choose a different microphone for a baritone singer than you would for a soprano, right? And so you want to be sure that the microphone, especially if it's used, is operating according to its original specifications.
Nice, thank you. Mickey.
I think specifically for microphones, first off is to listen to it, assuming you're familiar with the microphone or at least the family of microphones. If you know how they're supposed to sound, having a listen could tell a lot from it. Like if you have a bit of high frequency roll off on it, if you're, for example, if there's any wind protection built into the capsule that might need replacing or cleaning, especially if it's an older microphone, you can, just by listening to it, you can tell a lot. Along with, of course, noise floor, self noise, bad caps. You can, as a sound person, you can easily tell if something's up. If you want something a bit more scientific, then there are these noise generators or noise boxes that are used to actually, like what the factories use to take these measurement frequency response graphs that come in the box when you buy them. You can either take it to a shop that knows how to refurbish these mics, or send it into, you mentioned these are DPA microphones that you have just acquired. Send it over to DPA and have them take a look, have them measure it, and perhaps there are some things that might not be apparent to you that they see inside that, these caps will go bust in a couple years time. We'll just replace it. A nice refurbishment of the microphone is never a bad thing to do, especially for more modern microphones. Those noise generators, noise boxes, they're also typically called RTA, or measurement microphone calibration speakers. So those are what they typically use to reproduce a consistent frequency range to measure the microphone against. But yeah, another thing that with secondhand gear, especially microphones, another thing to look at are the connectors. Connectors are one of the things that go out first, because it's an actual mechanical connection that gets used every single time you plug it in. Check the connectors, jiggle the connector while it's plugged in. Make sure you're not hearing little crackles while it's plugged in. If not, if you do hear little crackles, maybe a simple reflow of the solder on the connector, on the solder joints might fix that. Maybe it's something on the board. If it's maybe that those joints have really loosened up, it might need a bit more work. But a quick reflow fixes a lot of things. So just a couple of things that I usually look for.
I'll never forget the first time an engineer in one of the TV stations I was working at said, "Yeah, I can hear the capacitors are going on that piece. We're going to have to replace them quick." And so there's sounds. Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I always try to just head it off at the pass by buying from reputable dealers in the first place. It's tough to buy stuff on eBay, especially when it's such a good deal. Our friend Omar yesterday was in Jeff Keithley's What Makes It Tick meeting talking about some of the stuff that he just picked up off of Facebook Marketplace and got a really great deal. And sometimes you score, but sometimes, like I got burned on two devices recently. One was a Behringer X32, and when it came, I tested it out. It seemed fine, and then I put it in this church production, and it failed within a few minutes, and I had to go do the walk of shame up in front of the whole congregation, 1,000 people, and go repatch. So channels 1 through 9. Later, we found that it could be a dirty board, but the phantom just died on all of them. But after I restarted it, after the event was done, it worked. And then another piece that I bought was that X32 controller called the Behringer X-Touch. The MIDI works fine, but the Ethernet was fried on it, so I can't put it on the network, and I don't want to pass this stuff on to other people. So I just still have it. I use it via USB. But reputable people like Vintage King is a really popular place. If you're buying used microphones, this is a good place to take a look at. Another one is True Audio. Another one is Gotham Sound. These are people that I trust. And if you are going to buy something on eBay, it's always good to just look at the feedback, look at what the seller's other items, and see what they have. Like even though something like this is a F6, I plugged one of these Dante dongles in, and this had been in my bag, and like Mickey was saying, the connectors can get bent, and so right now this thing won't disconnect. I mean, I'm sure I could finagle it, and I will eventually, but just right out the gate, I plugged something in, and now it's stuck in there, and it's like little things like that you got to be careful of, because even people who take care of their gear, like I was in a hurry, threw it in a bag, it bounced around a little bit, and that's what happens when, production gear gets used in production. Sometimes it's dirt, sometimes it's rain, sometimes it's high humidity. It just depends on the piece. And one of the worst experiences I had, though, was as a former reseller. I sold a Sanken CS3E on Amazon. Somebody returned it, and our tech that tests stuff couldn't figure out why he wasn't getting a signal at all. And he's like, "Hey, can you take a look at this one?" And I took a look at it, and I unscrewed it, and the whole capsule was gone. Somebody had gone in and taken the whole capsule out and returned
literally
it.
Harvested
this
it out of it?
$1,450 microphone. Yeah, they took
God.
and it had been sitting for more than 30 days, and we couldn't do anything about it. It was
straight up stealing, straight up.
Took the capsule out. It's crazy.
Oh, man. Mickey, you wanted to get back in on this?
Yeah, those little things. Just to double down on what Guy said. Every couple of months, or actually nowadays it's more every year and a half, 2 years, we send our sound devices gear off to Wisconsin, just for maintenance checkup. And there are so many little things that's like, oh, we discovered this. Oh, this connector is slightly bent. XLR connector with a little nick in it. And if you solve those tiny things like that early, before they become a bigger problem, it's so much better in terms of your quality of life or quality of work on set, because like you don't find yourself in a situation where, like, especially with folks with mixed pre's, there are a lot of reports of XLR connectors, especially cheapo non-Nutric XLR connectors, getting stuck in mixed pre's, and it's because of those like micro dings that you don't notice, like by just looking at it from afar, but inside tiny bend can mean 2 hours of you struggling to unplug a cable or plug a cable into your mixer. So it's nice to be able to send it over to the folks who actually manufacture the unit, and they can really tell when there's something that needs to be repaired.
Marty?
Yeah, hearing these stories really brings up for me the importance of being more than just an operator. Like, teach yourself how to take something apart carefully without damaging it, to inspect the inside, right? For microphones, open it, take the connector out of the bottom, inspect the solder joints and the wiring, pull the capsule off of the top. A lot of capsules are interchangeable and replaceable. Pull the capsule off the top, check the connectors that connect the capsule to the body. Look for signs that it has been tampered with, and learn how to solder. Learn how to solder well, right? Because so many problems can be solved by a good solder joint. Because a lot of solder, I've taken cables apart, and there's nothing simpler than assembling, putting connectors on a wire, right, for an XLR cable. I've taken so many apart that come straight from the factory, and the solder joints are just, the craftsmanship is just horrible. And, you don't want to use something like that on your production where there are millions of dollars at stake, right? And somebody's reputation that who's hired you to do a job for them and expect results. So, teach yourself to become somewhat technical and taking things apart. Care for your equipment. Oftentimes, it's very common practice and very good advice to take things apart and clean them regularly. Blow all the dust out, brush it off, make sure that it's clean. Take the screens off of your microphones and make sure that they're not clogged up. Learn how to maintain your gear, and especially when you're buying stuff. Another thing about buying stuff, Jason brought this up, is that when you're buying used gear, you're responsible for making sure that it works. And there are a lot of places to buy used gear. There are marketplaces and there are auctions. There are some auction houses that specialize in broadcast and production equipment. But you got to know what you're buying, and you got to know what the value of what you're buying is. I've seen stuff used stuff go for more than retail price. So you got to know what you're buying and how much to expect to pay for it. And when you do get something, even if you do get it at a good price, and I've bought many things from auction, you have to make sure that it's in proper working condition, and you have to make sure that you're ready to put it on a live show. So just be careful of that.
Yeah, and sometimes if you don't know how to do it yourself, I've used a middleman house. Last time I was talking earlier today in the pre-show about I had a pair of Sony C37 matched microphones that I sold, and somebody was interested in Nashville, and I said, well, listen, let's do this. I'm going to ship them to one of the respectable houses in Nashville that does repair and things like that. They're going to look them over. They will tell you what they see, and then they'll kind of embargo them. And when I tell them that, when I've paid you now, they'll release them to you so that you're not trying to do this yourself if the looking through this piece of gear. If it's an expensive piece of gear and looking through it is something beyond you yourself, sometimes you can use an expert middleman like that, and it makes the deal a lot safer for everybody involved. All right, let's get to our next question.
Our own Guy Cochran asks, how have you seen a Stream Deck used in audio production?
Mickey McAchore.
So yeah, for myself, my heaviest use of Stream Decks is for dialogue editing in post-production in Pro Tools, where you're doing a handful of actions thousands of times per day. So, when you're going through, a film or a documentary or whatever it may be, and you're cleaning up the dialogue and you're finding hundreds of little clicks all spread out throughout. And I have, for different types of clicks, different presets on different plugins for each type of click. And if I were to open up the go into Audio Suite, which is the burnt-in processing engine, I don't know how you feature set within Pro Tools, and open up the different types of click plugins and load my preset for this type of click. If it's like a very quick transient mouth click versus a lower end thump on a table, if I were to open each one up by using a mouse, click on it and setting each preset up and then processing it, a single click will take me 15-20 seconds as opposed to a button on a Stream Deck. So for me, all the different processes and dialogue cleanup that I have to do, declick, decrackle, declip sometimes, a spectral repair, I have all of those on Stream Deck buttons, and it really speeds up my workflow. That's my heavy use of Stream Decks. Of course, in a live situation, I use Stream Decks to trigger QLab cues. I also, one of the, I guess, more interesting uses I've had in audio for Stream Deck is like a poor man's push to talk, wherein I would take a spare board like a DM3, and then send my IFB or my mix minuses through it, and then also insert talkback microphones, and then use a Stream Deck to unmute a send and mute it back so that someone can essentially use a Stream Deck to do a push to talk with a mixer. I guess that's one of the more interesting use cases, but by far my heaviest use cases with presets with processing within Pro Tools.
Depop, decrackle, and declip. That sounds like a bad law firm. Marty Atias.
Or a breakfast cereal.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Snap, crackle.
Yeah, I have had to. I've had to give push-to-talk comms to a producer on a hot mic. So he was doing some announcing behind the scenes, but he also needed to talk over comms using the same mic, and I've done push to talks using something like a Stream Deck or mixing station, customized user screen or something like that. But for live production, triggering playbacks is a really good and common example. Sometimes I'll want to give some kind of control to the TD for something. But another application is, in some cases, like houses of worship or an event space that has a variety of different people who need some kind of control over sound, turning microphones on and off or adjusting a volume level. And you don't want to give them access to the entire mixer or to the control room or the rack. You can give them a Stream Deck with a couple of simple buttons to turn a microphone on or off and control a volume on a dial or an up and down button. It's a very simple way to enable simple events to happen without requiring an AV person there. There's let's see. So what else can I think of for using Stream Decks? Simple control over layer selection, over mute groups, for example. Yeah, it's so flexible, between Stream Deck and Companion and all of the integrations between all this different equipment. Sometimes you don't have enough people to operate an entire suite. You don't have the audio person and the TD and the graphics person, and sometimes it's one person doing all of those things from one desk, and rather than swishing back and forth on a roller chair. You can put a bunch of different functions on a Stream Deck, all from one location.
Jeff Francis.
So Zach in the chat reminded me that Stream Deck is not just a control device, it's two-way communication, so it can provide great feedback. He mentions that he uses a Stream Deck for feedback on his Axient wireless to show battery level, RF signal level, on-off muted, all those kinds of things. So having feedback that you don't need to, that shows up on a Yamaha console, but you have to go to that particular page. That shows up in software, but you have to go to that software. So on a Stream Deck, you could have that kind of feedback about wireless RF level at a glance.
That sounds really useful. Let's get to our next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia asks, I need a comm system for a house of worship group of 5. Low budget, any suggestions?
I think Jeff and Marty are both going to help you. Jeff, let's start with you.
So there's the Hollyland wireless solid comm. The whole package comes together. This is 6 headsets for $1,200. And it has rechargeable batteries. I will caution that this can have trouble going.
Whoops!
It is wireless, so I hit the mute button. Sorry. Yeah. So if your line of sight, if you're in the same kind of major space, this works really well. If you're trying to have them go to a different part of the building, that would be a caution about that.
Marty.
All right. Yeah. So I was going to hit on the Hollyland as well, the SolidComm SE. So there's 2 different. So let's first review. There's 3 different types, generally speaking, of intercom systems. There's one that requires a base station that controls all of the channels and allows wired intercom plus wireless intercom. Then there's the non-base or without a base intercoms like the Hollyland, so these headsets communicate directly to each other, and you can have several of them. And then there's other brands would be EarTech. They have similar systems. I think they would probably be a bit more affordable. There's a variety of models to choose from based on how many pieces you need, how many headsets you need, and how many channels you want. So there's choices there. And then there's a company called Pliant, Pliant. They also have a variety of similar types of headsets to choose from, some with belt packs and headsets, and some with just headsets alone. Then the other type of headset, the third type, is software-based or IP-based. And these are headsets, these are intercoms like Space Comms and a couple of others where you're communicating using your cell phone and headsets that are connected to your cell phone, either wired, if you still have that, or could be Bluetooth or whatever. And you're going through a central server over the internet. And so these can be very flexible. You're not limited to distance. You're not limited by the attenuation of walls between stage and control room. And you get them, there's a variety of subscription pricing for these. So you need to use your own personal devices and headsets. But those are 3 types of fairly inexpensive intercoms that you can find.
Mickey McAchore.
Yeah, I think it's usually helpful when one mentions low budget, what exactly that entails, because different scales for different types of productions. I might suggest that take a look at the used market. There are, say, if you look at good old eBay, or there's a site that specializes in used equipment for houses of worship called Church Gear. If you search for ClearComm, they don't have a good selection at the moment, but sometimes they get the whole load of like full ClearComm systems. Sometimes I've even seen RTS systems on here that are actual real intercom systems. Usually they are analog to wire, but if they work, they work. They're of course wired key panels and wired belt packs. Most of the time, you won't see what do you call this? Your free speak systems here for a low price, or your Bolero systems here for a low price. So, keep your mind in the wired intercom system world. And you can often find good deals from companies that are upgrading to digital systems, RF belt packs, and all that. I have to give a +1 for the Hollyland intercom systems. For the price, they're good. I would go for either the Solidcom C1 system at the minimum from them. I highly recommend getting it with the base station, but you can operate the C1 system with I guess a leader headset that all the other headsets connect to directly. But having the base here allows you to be able to place your antenna at a more optimal location, as well as allows you to tie them into 2-wire systems, 4-wire systems, balance audio, and even a USB audio interface built in case you need to tie your comms to a computer, like say if you're running Unity for remote integration with other operators, for example. You can use that UVC input. It's come in really handy. I have a C1 Pro kit, which I've used for smaller productions, and they work okay. They're impressive for the price. Just know your limitations. They're not Boleros, but they're decent for the price. If you have a bit more budget, I'd probably look into the the second to the highest end option that Hollyland currently has, which is the M1 Pro. You have a lot more flexibility, room for growth with this. You can add additional base stations with external antennas. They allow you to really expand what the system can do. If you're really, really on a tight budget, I'd probably look into like these Motorola talkabouts. These are the family FRS family radio system walkie-talkies. This is what you see people use in theme parks, so they can talk to the rest of the family. Of course, know that this is wide open. Anyone can jump on your channel and speak to you, but they are really, really cheap. It's just another option out there.
Hey, don't forget, if you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, kind of the hub of what we do here. The show's on there every day. You can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer, become part of the team that makes all this possible. Or if you'd like to do something simple and help us out, you can donate. That we are a 501c3. You can donate at officehours.global/donate. All right, we still have a bunch of questions to get through, so let's dive into the next one. Next question.
Next question is from Roger Martin in Tonto Basin, Arizona. Guy, recently you had issues with vmix on some cheap cloud services, but you mentioned sometimes back that you used an inexpensive, easy setup cloud-based instance for vmix. I'll only be using one instance. Recommendation.
Guy, take it away.
Yeah, so this issue that we had was within the community. There were some folks that wanted to dabble in an inexpensive option, and we got burned by it. And which I would have, had I known what it was, I would have said, "Don't do that. It's a bad idea," because we've gone down this path before. But it was exciting to see other people play in this realm because it can get complicated. But some of us have figured this whole ingest versus cut machine. So you need two, and then you need a way to actually bridge those two together. So in the cloud, we use NDI. So if you're transmitting from one to the other, you really want a robust cloud. So in our case, we mostly use AWS. So the place where I've talked about that you can go and get that set up very easily is Viz actually has a nice instance. It's called an AMI that's already pre-configured. And the nice thing is that in this AMI, they've already given you the PDF user guide, how to set it up. So I'll put a link to this in chat, but you could just Google search Viz RT AWS AMI, and you'll hit this page. So they have for their ingest, you could use an NDI bridge transcoder, so that would be your ingest, and then they actually walk you through how to pipe that over to your TriCaster instance, but you can install vmix on this TriCaster instance. So when you go to this TriCaster instance here and you install this on your instance, you have these resources here that will give you this user guide, and this actually gives you the whole scoop. I mean, look at how long this thing is. Look at it's taken that long to just download it. This will give you the inside scoop of all the ways to hook up to. You say that you're going to use one, so I'd imagine that you might just be using a basic vmix with Zoom integration. If you want to just doink around and play and do stuff on the cheap, the other place is shadow.tech. For $54.99 for the month, you can get this machine that does have a real GPU in it, so you can while you're learning, just ingest here. And if you don't need that connection, if you don't need this whole ingest cut machine, then you might be able to get away with it. I mean, you could try and play with this. The downside is that you don't have control over these network things so that you can fine tune and be granular and open up ports. So like if you want to do SRT as your ingest, you wouldn't be able to go over to Shadow PC and be like, hey, can you open up your port? Because they don't do that kind of thing. That's where AWS, just pay the $2 an hour and use the robust tools. I mean, Google Cloud's the other option, as well as Microsoft Azure. But if you use Azure, be very careful about shutting down those machines, read into it, because I had to get a $1,000 refund because I left my machine attached. You don't just say shut down in Azure. You got to say detach. So be aware.
And in a lot of chat about this, Mark Britton said CAME-TV. CAME TV is what I use. Works well. Chris Sabato noted Vultr, VULTR. And Jeff Keithley has some notes in there. Also said give him a shout out. He'll be happy to walk you through some of the options here. So lots of stuff going on. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, is there a hardware box that provides headphone crossfeed so you don't have the in-your-head feeling when monitoring on headphones?
Mickey Bakachor.
Yeah, I think I might call them monitor speakers. That's what if you want to hear
wedges. Is that what you're saying?
Open
Wedges?
Air. Yes.
No, like actual studio monitors, like JBLs or Genelecs or what have you. If you want to be able to monitor in a way that better resembles what you hear on speakers, and just listen on speakers. If you're mixing on cans, then mix on cans, learn how they should sound on cans. Because if you're monitoring through processing, you're not hearing your mix. You're hearing your mix going through that processing. So just listen to it straight on cans. Know how those cans translate to, different environments on speakers, on large speakers, on small speakers. Learn how that pair of headphones translates. Don't try to make something sound like what it's not, because you're not really going to hear what your mix sounds like if you're doing that.
Yeah, I have to say, as a voiceover guy, I always wear headphones because I'm not listening to what I sound like. I know what I sound like. I'm listening. Are there sibilants that are a problem? Am I popping P's? It's those kind of things, and I know how my headphones sound for that, so it's a specific use case. Jeff Francis?
So there are some software simulations that try to make headphones sound like you're listening to loudspeakers, but you're looking for a hardware box. So SPL has a monitor controller, the SPL2 control, and it has headphone amps in it, and there is a crossfeed control you can see lit up right above that allows you to add crossfeed in. That's the hardware solution, $1,000.
All right. Marty Etias.
Well, like Mickey was saying, if you're processing your headphones, then you're not really hearing what you think you are, right? You're intentionally changing what you're listening to. That doesn't seem right. if you're getting that, if that is that can be a very fatiguing experience to be listening to headphones and everything is, right dead center in the middle of your head all the time. Yeah, that can be troublesome. You do have the option of choosing a different pair of headphones because different kinds of headphones will give you a different listening experience. The thing is, and this is with anything, practice with those headphones, learn what they sound like and how they differ from what you would hear with an accurate pair of loudspeakers. Like microphones, different I was working in a studio that I work in fairly regularly, and we decided to do an experiment. Everybody brought in every pair of headphones they had one day. We had a down day, and we listened to like a couple dozen different pairs of headphones. The difference in sound quality from one to another was just astounding. They sounded, some were dark, some were bright, some were open, some were closed. I mean, some sounded like everything was in the middle of your head, and some sounded like the room. I was hearing the entire room for, like a live performance. Some of them were like harsh, some of them were muddy. The differences were just incredible. So different pairs of headphones just sound different. So find something that that works for you and that you like and is will represent the kind of program material that you're working with. So headphones that would be appropriate for dialogue and voice, like if I did news recording on the scene, reporting for a long time. That might be a different pair of headphones that I would use than if I was doing music performance. So find something that not only works for you, but represents the program material that you're working with.
Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, what are good Zoom meeting and Shure settings for a large room 30 by 30 by 15 feet high with a Mac M1 and a Shure MV Plus?
Oh, I love these theoretical. Jeff, can you project yourself psychically into this space and diagnose it?
I think the big question here is you have and Paul put in the comments earlier that he's talking about the MV7 Plus, which has both the XLR and the USB, and I'm assuming USB output because he's going into a Zoom meeting, and the microphone has a lot of duplicates of what the Zoom meeting audio controls can do, meaning what I'm talking about is noise reduction and auto leveling. So we need to be careful that those two don't fight each other. But I think you could do a little bit of work, letting Zoom do a little bit of noise control, and you could probably do a little bit out of the mic. But the first thing I would say is let's get good audio principles at the beginning, which is if you can get the microphone close to your mouth, you're going to remove a lot of the echo of the room. If you can do some acoustic treatment in the room, so if you have curtains, furniture, soft blankets, pillows, reduce we're talking about a high ceiling and a large room. So good principles would be let's make that room more dead for the Zoom meeting. I would probably avoid doing auto leveling in two places. That's just going to really mess things up. So I would try to set all your stuff in the microphone, a very little bit of noise reduction in the microphone, and then maybe let Zoom do a little bit of Zoom's noise reduction because it does a very good job. Set your levels correctly in the Zoom, because probably what we need to remember is if you have this set up to do a Zoom meeting and you set the mic properly and then you go and you have to join someone in a Teams meeting, you'd rather have all the audio processing done right at the beginning through the USB cable so that when you change from one service to another, it goes with you.
Mickey.
Yeah, I have to support Jeff there. Like a bad room will always sound like a bad room. If you add a better microphone, that microphone will just better capture the bad room. So fix the room first. If I understand correctly, Paul might be talking about his his garage that has like a tin roof. If you really care about how you sound, double or triple wall the space wherein you'll be having these meetings, so that you're cutting off the sound from all the traffic noise, the rain noise, which I know that space has where that garage is located has a lot of weather that happens there. So once it starts pouring and hits that tin roof, like your anything you do will be pointless. So double or triple wall, double or triple ceiling, so that you can really isolate that space where you're having the meeting. I have to support the not having too much processing going on. I know these Shure microphones, if you use the USB interface built in, there is capability for the microphone to add compression, noise suppression, I believe gating as well. I would disable all of those on the microphone, and let Zoom or whatever your web conferencing platform take care of it. Once all that processing is turned off on the mic, if this is just a normal meeting you're jumping on with normal people, I would just stick to automatic leveling within Zoom, so that you're at the same level as everyone else. No need to be fancy and stick to a flat microphone level if you're not going to actually manage it throughout the meeting. If it's a meeting with normal folks, people that aren't aiming for a specific loudness level, and they just let Zoom do what Zoom does, stick to automatic level within Zoom. And noise suppression, you can keep it on if it's a good sounding room, then you can go original sound for musicians and have little or no processing on the Zoom side. But if there's a lot of noise in your space, and I think that's typically the types of spaces that Paul joins Zoom meetings from, you might want to set your Zoom to have noise suppression enabled. Maybe play with low, medium, or auto, depending on what your environment can afford you. But keep it simple during normal meetings, auto level.
Next question.
Tommy Chance in St. Paul, Minnesota asks, I've found setting up my mixing station app cumbersome. Has anyone here used AI for assistance? Are there other solutions other than the community shares?
Marty, it is. Dive in.
So I've been hearing about people using certain AIs to lay out their console, to do console layout, right? You describe what it is you want, and you connect your computer up to your mixer, and it configures your mixer for you. Well, I think this is a terrible idea. This is my personal opinion. A terrible idea. One of the most critical functions a live mixing engineer can perform is setting up their mixer. Setting up all your inputs, all your processing, all your buses, all your outputs, all your input and output matrixing. This is the most critical function that is going to define how well you're going to be able to control your mix and all your monitor mixes, your broadcast mix, your live PA mix. If you're giving that control up to something else, then you're setting yourself up for some serious issues, right? Mixing Station is a software program that can be run on a computer or a tablet that can control your mixer with a different interface, if you so desired, to what your mixer is showing. So you can rearrange all your channels, your inputs and outputs. You can do custom screens. You can do custom buttons. You can do lots and lots and lots of really very cool things with Mixing Station. But it's not that terribly difficult. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of features there, right? You can use or not use. And when you look at Mixing Station, it looks like a mixer, right? That's one of the nice things I like about Mixing Station is that for as many mixer brands and models that it supports, all of the user interfaces look the same, right? So it becomes a very familiar, very intuitive interface. And you can do things like, so this is showing 16 inputs. You can do things like editing them out. So if you want to have different, just these inputs showing on the bottom, and when I go back to the screen, that's what's showing on this screen, and you have all these layers that you can customize. When you go to the settings menus, there are 2 different setting menus with lots of tabs. You have all of these different features that you can use to modify or change the behavior of colors and buttons and all kinds of different things. And if some of them may not be instantly recognizable as to what they do, but if you click on the question mark button under each one, there is an explanation. And sometimes the explanation is like not really clear, but it will give you a really good idea of what that does. And then you can just simply, play with some of these things. So it's a really, really nice program to work with. It is very, very flexible. Spend some time with it, offline. You can go and open any of these mixers in an offline mode, so you don't need the hardware. You won't get any signal through it, but you can change the way the interface looks and acts, play with it. If you do have a hardware mixer that will integrate with it, just, take it home, boot it up, play with it, and get used to it, because it really is a remarkable thing.
Mickey.
Yeah, I'm curious, Tommy, what exactly you're having trouble with in terms of setting up Mixing Station. Is it actually, setting up the UI how you want it, or is it setting up the board, which you should be, one should be doing anyway for every show or every program, every broadcast that you do. You should go through the board and know where each part of the board is set and how it is set and why it is set that way. If you rely on something else as Marty touched on, like if you rely on something else, you don't know how your board is laid out. And that's something like in my mind mission critical. Like you should know how everything is routed, and you should route things intentionally. Of course, like you don't just like, oh, I'll send this mic, I'll have some AI bot build a mix minus, and what if you're running comms through the same board, which often happens. Like you should know and be very hands on with building your show file, building your board. If it's just the UI that you're struggling with, then I would suggest that you, what I've done is I just start from the default UI. I see a lot of examples in the Mixing Station community for other ways to build your GUI for Mixing Station. I take inspiration from there, but I start from the default, and then as shows go by, I start to learn like, hey, would be nice to have this button here. Would be nice to have the meters for the gain reduction on the compressor a little larger. We can slowly tweak it to your liking, but what's important is it's optimized for you and no one else. Don't just load someone else's preset and call it a day. Build it. The powerful thing with Mixing Station is one of the powerful things with it is you can build your own GUI. So utilize that. Build it so that it works best for you. But in terms of building or setting up your show file, setting up your board, I honestly wouldn't hire anyone that lets someone else build their show file if you're an A1 or you're the one pushing faders. It should be your show file. You should know where everything is.
And that's going to do it for us for today. Thank you all for being here and adding your expertise into the office hours process. We truly appreciate it. If you didn't get your question answered today, because we did leave a few there at the end, just look in. If you put them in through the system, the main system, they'll come back to you in your notes. And if not, if you put them in through the QR code, they'll be persistent and come back the next time we do the main show, which is Friday. Thank you to everybody, particularly to all of our producers, those of you who put questions into the show. You drive this by your work, and we appreciate it every day. To the panelists, amazing complex brilliance always on display here, as people who've been in the industry for a long time are happy to share everything they've learned through the course of time, and we truly appreciate it. And to our amazing back-end crew, you'll see the crawl at the end of this. That is just some of the people who work on this show every single day. Time for the Telect Reversal. If this was episode 2185, we traveled to get this information virtually 14,000 miles today. That's 20,000 kilometers, 109 million bananas for scale. We will see you back. Don't forget David Paskin's show tomorrow night, and then we're back here in the morning on Friday. See you next time. Bye. 30 seconds over. That wasn't too bad.
Well done, Bill. A radio pro out of you yet.
Right on.
Hit it right on the money.
I'm so used to having flexible end times that when I asked that question in the chat, and everyone went, we kind of have lives that we have to get back to. It's like, okay, there's an answer.
Bye, guys. Good show.
Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, great.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.